It's 2025, and with the new year come the same old stresses.
I think there's a lot of things going on in 2025 that people are worried about, and one of those is finances right now.
That's our guest today, Devon Lacombe.
According to Scotiabank's 5th annual Worry Poll, Canadians are spending nearly 18 hours a week worried about their finances. That's basically a part-time job.
But it doesn't have to be. Devon is the Vice President of Retail Investments at Scotiabank. She's our guest this episode and has 7 simple tips to de-stress your finances in 2025. Each one a small but practical step toward making money a little less of a worry. Like this one.
And it's something that sounds really easy, but I think it can be really hard for people, and that's be kind to yourself. I think it's important for people to focus on progress and not perfection.
So from a no-fuss approach to budgeting, to tools that make saving easier, and much more, Devon's here to make the new year a less stressful one.
Tackling your finances can feel overwhelming for many Canadians. It's important to focus on the small things that you can do every day to get your finances in a better position.
I'm Stephen Maurice, and this is Perspectives. Devon, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Stephen.
Okay, so we mentioned in the intro, you've come to us with a bunch of tips to de-stress your finances in 2025. But maybe we can start with a little bit of context. There's so much going on in the world, from geopolitical events to fluctuating markets. I guess also some of the things that have happened over the last couple of years with high interest rates and inflation and so on. I guess that's still on people's minds as well.
It's definitely on people's minds. Take me, for example. So my husband and I, like many Canadians, bought a house in COVID. We bought that when interest rates were rock bottom. So we had a 5-year fixed mortgage at 1.6%. 1.6. Those are the payments we've been making for the last 5 years. We have to refinance that in February.
Right.
That's going to more than double.
And there's lots of people facing that situation.
There's lots. I don't think we're unique in that. There's lots of people facing it. Right? So those payments you need to make on your debts for many Canadians are going up, while interest rates on your savings account are going down. And I think that dynamic is causing a lot of concern for Canadians, as it should. But, which we're going to talk about, there are things that you can do with your finances that are going to help you deal with those higher payments and help you offset the lower interest rate that you're getting on your savings account.
Okay, well, let's start with these tips. And I think the first one is maybe a little bit unusual, not even necessarily a financial tip, but maybe a good place to start.
Yeah, definitely. And this is one that isn't just specific to your finances. And it's something that sounds really easy, but I think it can be really hard for people. And that's be kind to yourself.
Okay.
Tackling your finances can feel overwhelming for many Canadians. It's important to focus on the small things that you can do every day to get your finances in a better position.
How do you do that when it comes to money?
Yeah, so I think what you do is you cut yourself some slack and you realize that it's going to take you some time to get your finances under control and to feel confident and empowered about your financial life. Don't expect to make every single change in a day and to have everything figured out by tomorrow.
Right.
Just like anything else, take small steps in the right direction, and they're going to add up to get you to the ending place that you need to be at.
Right. So you don't need to necessarily start living like a monk because you're worrying about money. You have to continue to live your life.
Yeah, continue living your life.
Yeah.
And when you're starting out with your financial plan, be patient with yourself. And then as you're trying to execute against your financial plan, don't measure yourself on every single day or every single month. I mean, I, for one, know that my credit card bill isn't always where I want it to be every month.
Sure.
And that's okay. That's life.
Yeah, you talked about people being overwhelmed by these things. And I think feeling like they have to do everything right kind of paralyzes them, maybe.
I think it does. And I think it's important for people to focus on progress and not perfection.
Right.
If you try to tackle everything at once or try to get everything set up perfectly, you're probably not going to do anything. And the most important thing is to do something. So just make little improvements, and those little improvements will add up.
Which sets us up for tip number 2, which is start small. What do you mean by that?
What I mean by start small is that when it comes to your finances, every small adjustment that you make can have a really big impact. And every single thing that you learn or uncover can help you put your money to work more effectively. So start with some small steps. One that I really like to start with is to just learn more about your financial situation. Look at how much money is actually hitting my account every month. How much money am I bringing in? What is my average credit card bill? How much money am I spending via my credit card every month? What are the different debt payments that I have and what interest rate is each one at right now? When are those going to come due and need to refinance if it's something like a mortgage? So starting small can just be kind of learning your current state and the lay of the land and what you have going on. And right there is a huge step forward in getting your finances under control.
So educate yourself. You have to know what you have, know what's going out, so maybe you're not so surprised at the end of the month.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Tip number 3, and this is kind of a follow-on from what you were just saying, which is make a simple budget, which that's kind of like the broccoli of the financial world. You feel like you have to do it. I think lots of people avoid doing it.
Yeah, I think you're right. And you'll see with all these tips that they stack on top of each other. And I think that gets back to the beginning, which is take a bunch of small steps and they'll add up to something big. So you'll see as we go through that it's kind of a waterfall of tips and tricks. So once you have a better understanding of your money, you can make what I call, as you said, a simple budget. It doesn't have to be totally precise, but it's really about how much money is coming in, how much money is going out, how much money am I setting aside to pay down debt, and how much money am I setting aside to save towards my goals. Lots of the banks have tools out there that can help you do that. Here at Scotia, we have Scotia Smart Money, which automatically tracks where your money's going. So you can see what categories of things you're spending on, how much is going to pay bills, pay down debt, how much you're spending on food, etc. So what it can help you do is just kind of lay out, here's how much money I've come in, here's how much money I spend on everyday staples, here's how much money I need to spend to pay my bills, and then here's how much I have left over, and I can make decisions about that.
Right. How detailed do you need to be? Because you don't even think about it sometimes, all of the things that you spend money on, the Netflix account and, the Uber Eats that you do a couple of times a week or whatever. How specific or how detailed do you need to be in order to have a budget that's actually going to help you?
Yeah, different people have different opinions on this. Me, for example, I worry less about the categories of spending, and I worry more just about the inflows and outflows and making sure they land where I think they should. Now, I'm not somebody who has a big shopping habit or spends a ton of money on events or things of that nature. Maybe if you have one big spending category that you know can get a little out of hand, you might want to track that one specifically, but I don't recommend tracking every single spending category because that just gets monotonous and it's almost like you kill yourself with the detail.
Right.
One rule of thumb that you can use is 50-30-20.
What's that?
And that's you spend 50% of your money on needs. Those are staples, things that you need, clothes, food, housing. You spend 30% on wants. So we talked about events or trips or excess clothes or anything like that. And then 20% should go to paying down debts as well as saving for your future. So that's a good rule. It doesn't have to be precise, but I think it's a good way to set benchmarks for yourself.
So a budget doesn't necessarily need to be super detailed, but what's the benefit of one that is kind of back of the envelope? What's the benefit of doing even that kind of exercise?
Yeah, I think there's 2 major benefits of that type of exercise. I think the first is that it empowers you with knowledge and helps you feel more in control of your finances. It helps you just make sure that you know how much money is coming in every month, and you know roughly how much money is going out every month, and you know roughly how much surplus you have. Just that is very empowering, and it makes you make more informed decisions about your finances. The second thing a high-level budget helps you do is it helps you set rough benchmarks for yourself. For example, I use my budget to kind of help set targets for what I want my credit card bill to be around each month. Don't hit it exactly every month, but I try to average out at a certain point because I know about how much money I should be spending on the things that I use my credit card for.
Right. So again, it's kind of about not getting that big surprise at the end of the month when you get that bill.
Exactly. Yeah. And if you do, you know that you really need to buckle down the next month to make up for it.
Okay, so having a broad idea, not necessarily keeping track of every coffee that you buy or all of that stuff.
No.
But you still need to have a decent idea of where your biggest expenses are versus how much money you earn.
You do. You definitely do. Because without that, you can't answer, am I living within my means? And am I making progress towards my goals and towards what I want to do in my future?
Okay, well, you did the perfect segue to the next tip, which is break down your goal. And that'll help you even figure out the 50-30-20 thing and where the money is going to go in each one of those categories, right?
Yeah, definitely. Again, it's a waterfall, right? So every step helps move you in the right direction, I'd say. So setting your goals. I like to say that every financial plan starts with goals. And your goals are, what are those things you want to do in the short, medium, and long term.
Right.
So to start a financial plan, all you need to do is write down your goals. Is there a trip you want to take this year? Do you have the aspiration to buy a house in the medium term? Do you want to retire? I assume yes. Therefore, you should have a retirement goal.
Right.
So all you have to do to start a financial plan is lay out those goals. And just like I said before with the budgeting, most banks have tools that can help you lay out your goals as well.
Right.
So at Scotia, we have Scotia Smart Investor. And the way we actually do it is that you start with your goal for every single investment account you want to open. And the reason that we do that is because starting with your goal is very motivating. It allows you to know what you're saving for and why.
Okay. And do you recommend people have a sort of detailed financial plan, sort of looking out those 10 or 15 or 30 years? At what point is that necessary?
Yeah, I think for most Canadians, I would recommend that they do what we like to call goal-based planning, which is really tying each of your accounts to a goal. And then for each goal, you should have a time horizon and a target amount. So rather than having a big, complicated financial plan, you can just have a series of goals and you know how much you need to save in order to be able to realize that goal. And you know when you want to realize that goal. And with those two pieces of information, either you on your own or with the help of an advisor can set up frequent contributions to help build you towards that goal. And it can help you figure out what type of financial instrument should I put that money in. If it's long-term, you probably want to be a little riskier, a little bit more exposed to the market. If it's very short-term, you probably want to be more conservative and really protect that capital. So goal-based planning gets you most of the way there. And I find that it's the right first step into financial planning.
Okay. You're really good at the segue thing because you started talking about accounts and that was the next tip, get the right accounts. And what do you mean by that? And how complicated does that have to be? Because there are so many kinds of accounts.
Yeah, I would say this is probably the most important tip that we'll talk about today. And the reason for that is what you said, all the different types of accounts that are out there. So the reason that it's so important to get the right account set up is so that you can benefit from the different tax advantage accounts that the Canadian government provides to you.
Right.
There's a variety of them. This is, I think, what many people call the alphabet soup of accounts. Right. You have your TFSA and your FHSA and your RRSP and your RESP. And right there, I've probably lost people. It sounds a bit daunting and overwhelming.
Right.
The good news is that for many goals, there's a few different combinations of accounts that you can use, but there's usually one account that really helps you achieve it. Let's start with the retirement because that is something that I assume everybody wants to do at some point. I know I personally do.
As do I.
Yes. So everybody should have a retirement goal. And everybody should have an account that they're putting money into to save towards their retirement. And that account is an RRSP, Registered Retirement Savings Plan. The reason you should use an RRSP is because every dollar that you put in there reduces your taxable income from that year. Right. And then that money grows tax-free. So you're not paying any capital gains when you take that out in 20, 30, 40 years from now.
Right.
So that's the one to start with. There's a variety of other plans that can help you reach a variety of other goals.
Before we get into those other plans, with the RRSP, there's no capital gains tax, but the withdrawals are still taxable as income. But the idea is that you'll withdraw it when you're retired, when you'll have less income, and then you'll pay less tax on it.
Yes.
Okay, so with these accounts, they should be connected to your goals. So like an RESP, you're thinking about planning for your kids' education. You want to start doing that as soon as possible. And I guess with all of them, it's basically you don't want to leave any money on the table because there are financial benefits to using those types of accounts.
There's a lot. And RESP is a great one that you just brought up. Right. So anyone who wants to help pay for their children's education or educational related expenses in the future, and those expenses could be housing when you're a student, which we all know is very expensive and getting more expensive, right? So you can pay for a lot of different expenses with that. And the government will match the money that you put in every year up to a maximum match of $500 if you put in the max amount of $2,500. Yeah. So right there, you have up to $500 of free money that the government will give you every year if you contribute regularly to that account.
Right. So that could be close to 10 grand by the time your kid's going off to university.
It could be. It could be. It's a ton of money that you can get free from the government just by making sure that you have that account set up and you're contributing regularly to it.
Sure. So you mentioned a couple of those registered accounts, the RESP and the RRSP, super important. There are others, as we know, and maybe it's worth just giving a quick definition to some of the more well-known ones, the FHSA and the TFSA. Can you tell us what those are?
Those are also two very popular and very powerful tax advantage accounts. So the TFSA is your tax-free savings account, and the FHSA is your first home savings account. So the TFSA is an account that probably every Canadian should have. And the reason for that is the TFSA is the perfect account to help you save for your short-term or unexpected expenses. And the reason for that is that any dollar you take out of your TFSA is tax-free no matter what you take it out for. So there's a ton of flexibility in the account, and you can tap into that money whenever you need. And any money that you take out, you keep that contribution room in the next year so you can re-up it and add more.
Okay, so you don't pay any tax on that because, well, your contributions were made with money that you already paid tax on. But any growth you get in the TFSA is also tax-free. Is that right?
Exactly. Yeah. The FHSA, the first home savings account, is the newest account on the block. And this one's really powerful because it's basically like an RRSP on the way in and a TFSA on the way out when you're using the funds towards buying your first home.
Right.
So the FHSA, any Canadian over 18 who has not owned a home in the last 20 years is eligible to open an FHSA, and you can contribute up to $40,000 in your FHSA to pay for the down payment on your first home. And if you don't end up buying a home, you can actually take that money and roll it right into your RRSP without impacting your contribution room. So you always have that optionality with that account.
So like an RRSP, that one, you get the tax benefit when you put it in. It's deductible from your taxable income in that year. But any growth or anything that happens in it, like a TFSA, is not taxable when you take it out, when you're using it to buy a house.
Exactly. So it's tax advantage on the way in, and it grows tax-free within the account.
Right. Okay. The next tip is to use the tools available to you. What does that mean?
We've already actually talked about a few tools, but there's many, many more that you can use. And it gets back to what I was talking about with the RSP, where it's very important that you contribute regularly to your investment accounts. And the reason for that is, one, things like government matches that come annually. Another reason for that is compounding interest. Compounding interest is massively powerful, and it's the best way that you can grow your money.
Could you just briefly explain what that means, compounding interest?
Yeah, so it means that the longer you save for and the more frequently you save, that money grows faster because every dollar you put in earns interest. That interest goes right back into that account, and then you have more of a base that you're earning off of.
Right. So you're earning interest off of the interest eventually.
You're earning interest off the interest.
Right.
Yeah. So again, and this is start small. So if you put $100 into an account that returns, let's say, 8% each year, and you do that monthly over 30 years, you're going to earn about $115,000 in interest over those 30 years. If you cut that to 20 years, so you only do that for 20 years, the exact same thing, you're only going to earn $35,000 in interest.
Wow.
That's $80,000 that you haven't earned because you didn't start sooner with saving. $100 a month.
So it does go back to start small. Even starting to save something at a relatively young age over the course of time can have huge benefits.
Yeah. And back to the tools that you can use, every bank out there provides a tool called a pre-authorized contribution, or a PAC, as we like to call it in the banking world.
Right.
A PAC is a very powerful tool. And all it is a contribution that you set up that automatically pulls money at the frequency and amount you choose from your checking account and puts it against whatever investment or savings account you want.
Right.
You can set up multiple different PACs. And the reason that's so important is because it helps you do exactly what we just said. It helps you save small amounts frequently so that you take advantage of compounding interest and your money grows over time.
Right. And if you're doing those automatic contributions, you're not really seeing the money. It's coming out the day you get paid. You don't actually miss it nearly as much as you might if you have to go and make a withdrawal to put it somewhere.
Exactly.
Right.
And another thing you called out is do be smart about when those PACs hit your account. You always want any withdrawals from your checking account to be set up to hit after your paycheck hits your account because you don't want to get hit with overdraft fees.
Right. Any other tools that you think are important for people to know about?
Yeah. So one tool, if we go to the other side of your personal balance sheet, is debt consolidation. So that's something that can be really powerful. And especially if you're somebody who has high interest debt, I really encourage you to go talk to an advisor at your bank about what options you have to maybe take out a larger loan at a lower interest that can help you pay off that high interest. Because high interest debt erodes your money quite rapidly, and there's usually ways for you to pay it off at a lower interest rate.
Right.
And I find people kind of sometimes hide from that problem, and you shouldn't, because there's great ways that banks can help you pay off that debt more quickly.
Yeah, we haven't really spoken about debt and credit very much so far, so I'm kind of glad you brought it up. Even in that 50, 30, 20 formula that you talked about, I mean, I guess debt repayment falls in the 50. Like, it's the sort of the things that you have to do with your money each month, right?
Yeah, well, so debt repayment's actually in the 20 because you don't want it to be too much of your annual earnings. But yes, it always needs to be your top priority. I think that's true. So if you're in a situation where you have more debt than you maybe should within those guidelines, I really encourage you to go talk to an advisor about it, because just like I said, debt consolidation can really help. Also, make sure that you're using tools such as auto pay on your credit card, because if you're late on your credit card bill, that's going to lead to you paying unnecessary interest. And it adds up really quickly.
Right. So there's lots of tools to automate payments so you don't have to remember to pay your bill on the correct day.
Exactly.
And all that.
Yeah. I'm a big proponent of putting things on autopilot.
Yeah.
I would just say make sure you check in on it every so often.
Right. Okay. And you did mention in the context of debt consolidation, talking to the bank, and that is your final tip, which is get help.
Yeah, I think oftentimes people feel like they need to understand their finances on their own. They're insecure about talking with others about it. But there's no need to do that. You know, here at Scotiabank, we have over 3,500 financial advisors across the country whose job it is to help you with your finances. So I encourage everybody out there to speak with an advisor to help them better understand their own finances, to help them understand the myriad of accounts out there that can help them reach their financial goals, and to help them continuously revisit their finances so that they're on the right track even as circumstances change.
Right. I mean, they could help with all of the things that we talked about then, whether it's investments or mortgages or debt issues that you might have.
Everything.
Right. Okay. Those are 7 really helpful tips to de-stress your financial life. But if there's one thing that you would hope people would take away from the conversation, what would that be?
I think the one thing I want people to take away from the conversation is make a commitment to do something about your finances today. Do not avoid it. The longer you wait, the more money you're losing. If you're not putting that money to work, it's not earning interest for you. If you're not taking a look at your debts and paying them off appropriately, you're paying too much interest. The worst thing you can do is nothing.
Right.
So just do something and you're going to be in a better position tomorrow than you are today.
All right. Final question for you.
Yeah.
What is your New Year's resolution? And does it involve money?
That is a great question. My New Year's resolution, I guess you could say, is related to money. My New Year's resolution is to get more sleep. And one of the reasons I don't get that much sleep is because I am worrying, sometimes about money, but also about many other things in my life. But my resolution is to get more sleep.
So be kind to yourself and come back full circle.
It does all come back full circle.
Devon, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate it. It was a great conversation.
Thanks, Stephen. I enjoyed being here.
I've been speaking with Devon Lacombe, Vice President of Retail Investments at Scotiabank. The Perspectives podcast is made by me, Stephen Maurice, as well as Armina Lagaya and our producer, Andrew Norton. For a transcript of this episode, as well as other stories, insights, analysis, and thought leadership, visit our website, scotiabank.com/perspectives. We'll see you next time.